Welcome to the workshop, Children's Grief and Loss. In this module, we will be exploring how children may experience and express grief, often very different from teens and adults. We will explore strategies and tools that we can use to support children through the grieving process. Grief is the response to loss that includes thoughts, behaviors, emotions, and even changes to physical health. For adults and children alike, this may make it difficult to eat, sleep, or engage in daily routines. There are many types of grief that may be experienced. As adults, we often have access to support systems that will help us cope with the emotions and changes. It is important for us to help children through this process and to be supportive as often as we can. Feelings of grief in children may be caused directly or indirectly by traumatic events, death of a loved one, including a pet, serious illness, divorce, moving to a new home, loss of housing, a new sibling, financial instability, food insecurity, or child protection services involvement. Experiences of discrimination, violence in one's community, bullying, or isolation. Events and experiences such as these for children may not always seem traumatic to the adults around them. It is our role as a caregiver to support children through the grieving process. There are a few main types of grief that people experience. Acute grief, immediate, often with strong emotional and physical reactions, can recur. Integrated grief, enduring grief while being able to engage in daily activities without constantly feeling consumed by grief. Complicated grief, persistent grief without decrease in intensity. Collective grief is felt by a community or group who have all been impacted by an event, such as a hurricane. It is important to recognize the signs and potential causes of grief and loss experienced by a child and take steps to help them cope. As children age and mature, they may experience the feelings of grief, loss again, and more intensely as their understanding of the loss develops. A 3-year-old's understanding of their loss will change with their developing cognitive understanding. It is common for children to express grief differently than adults. Children will have many questions about traumatic events, and providing them with age-appropriate information and including them in the planning can be helpful in supporting coping skills through grief. Adults often express concern about upsetting children more by including them in experiences related to death, such as planning and attending funerals. It may actually help children feel included in a time when adults around them may be very upset or busy making plans. Children may want to talk and ask questions about an event, such as a funeral. They may make comments that seem out of context. For example, they may bring up the person who has died during an unrelated activity, or ask questions about the event or illness at times that doesn't seem appropriate. When children are grieving, their fears may intensify, or they may talk about new fears. These fears may be directly related to the cause of grief. For example, a child may develop a fear of germs or getting sick after a family member dies of an illness. Even witnessing a minor car accident, for example, could cause a child to become fearful of being in a car. Listen and reassure that they are safe, loved, and cared for. Allow flexibility in your routine. Give them extra time when they need it. Share facts that will help them understand using simple, concrete words and descriptions. For example, dead or died instead of loss or passed away, to talk about what you and your child are experiencing. At times, children may seem unusually quiet and withdrawn. Offer affection and reassurance that they are loved and cared for. When children have many questions about death and loss, it is important to take the time to respond. It's a good idea to be sure of what they are asking so you can answer at their level of understanding. Less information is sometimes better when speaking with young children. Children often ask the same questions repeatedly to make sense of a difficult information. This is because they have difficulty reflecting on their own thoughts and emotions. Like adults, they may need the answer repeated to them several times. It's okay to say that you don't know the answer to a question and that you'll find out as soon as you can and get back to them. Remember that these questions may trigger your own emotions, and that's okay. It's important for young children to see the adults around them dealing with grief in healthy ways, such as crying and talking about their feelings. It is common for children to express grief and loss through their emotions, such as sadness, crying, irritability, or negative behavior, such as acting out. Some children may have difficulty separating or show signs of anxiety. Children often do not understand which emotions they're feeling, and giving them labels for them will help them understand their feelings better. It's also important to stay close by to give support when it's needed. Some children may not visibly show emotions when grieving and may not seem sad at all. This is okay, as each of us grieve in our own way, based on our own personal experience and level of understanding. Play materials and dramatic play can be very healing for children when they are grieving. This can be offered through the use of toys and games that help the child act out and express their feelings. It is common for children to not feel well or have less of an appetite for food when grieving. It's important to monitor these changes if they're impacting the child's overall health or development and to seek professional medical help when needed. Grief and loss can disrupt routines and schedules for everyone involved. Children may have difficulty settling back into routine. Children may also show a lack of interest or ability to concentrate on tasks or lack interest in activities they used to enjoy. For example, their sleep patterns may change or their appetite may increase or decrease suddenly. Children who were previously toilet trained may have unexplained toileting accidents. The structure of returning to a regular routine as soon as possible can help create the structure needed for a calming effect. Add books about grief and loss into the daily routine, but remember to review the book before reading it to make sure the content is appropriate. Each child and situation is unique. Work together on a personal story. Write in a journal or draw pictures to help children work through their experiences and feelings. Use natural opportunities to talk about experiences. An example of a natural opportunity is when you see a dead bug or plant. Give factual and brief information. We can explain that when living things die, they do not feel anything anymore. Using words like dead or died is appropriate for children and less confusing than saying gone, lost, or passed away. Understand and include family and cultural practices in the grieving process. Children need our help to understand and cope with grief and loss. You're not alone in this process. There are many resources available to help with grief and loss. Please check the link provided with the video for the grief and loss article, which lists many of the resources available. Let's check your knowledge. True or false? It is important to use real words such as death and dead with young children when someone close to them dies. The answer is true. Using euphemisms such as he passed away or we lost grandpa can be very confusing to young children. Using real words helps give children clear and factual information. True or false? It is important to validate and label emotions for young children who are grieving. The answer is true. There are so many emotions to feel and none of them are wrong. Children may be unsure of how to describe their feelings, and you can help them by labeling emotions, such as anger.